Obviously, the impending conclusion of the Schumer shutdown is leading media coverage today, and I'll get into that shortly, but want to start with a couple of other national security issues first. First, on northwest Syria, we call on all parties to remain focused on the goal of defeating ISIS, de-escalating and resolving the Syrian conflict, and protecting innocent civilians. We hear and take seriously Turkey's legitimate security concerns and are committed to working with Turkey as a NATO ally. Increased violence in Afrin disrupts what a relatively stable area of Syria. It distracts from international efforts to ensure the lasting defeat of ISIS. It could be exploited by ISIS and al-Qaeda for resupply and safe haven, and it risks exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. We urge Turkey to exercise restraint in its military actions and rhetoric, ensure that its operations are limited in scope and duration, ensure humanitarian aid continues, and avoid civilian casualties. We want to ensure that Assad's brutal regime cannot return to Afrin, and we will continue working diplomatically to end the Syrian civil war. In Afghanistan, where terrorists attacked a hotel in Kabul, such attacks on civilians only strengthen our resolve to support our Afghan partners. We commend the swift and effective response of the Afghan security forces. Afghan forces, with our support, will continue to relentlessly pursue the enemies of Afghanistan who also seek to export terror around the world. We call on Pakistan to immediately arrest or expel the Taliban's leaders and prevent the group from using Pakistani territory to support its operations. Lastly, in regards to the government shutdown, we were pleased to see Senator Schumer accept the deal that President Trump put on the table from the very beginning, which was to responsibly fund the government and debate immigration as a separate issue. I have a statement here from the President of the United States that I will read. Quote, "I am pleased that Democrats in Congress have come to their senses and are now willing to fund our great military, border patrol, first responders, and insurance for vulnerable children. As I've always said, once the government is funded, my administration will work towards solving the problem of very unfair illegal immigration. We will make a long-term deal on immigration if and only if it's good for our country." End quote. And with that, I'll take your questions. Jonathan.
Sarah, how is the president going to work with Democrats when he's running a campaign ad that is calling them complicit in murder? How is he actually going to show leadership on this?
Look, the president's number one focus is our national security. He's been very strong on discussing the need for border security and tying that directly to national security. That's a big focus of both the president's campaign at the time and also since he's become president. In terms of specifics of any ad running, those aren't being done by the White House, and I can't get into any details. But his position in terms of the need for border security and how that impacts national security is something we've talked about and been very clear on.
So is he bringing the Democrats down here, bringing Republicans here, hashing this out? How's this going to be any different? We didn't see him over the weekend. He was only talking to Republicans. Obviously, if there's going to be a deal by February 8th, it's going to need to be a deal with Democrats.
Look, we've been very clear about what we want to see in any legislation, and I don't think that there's a whole lot of daylight between where we are and where the Democrats are. We certainly want to negotiate and get to a place, and we're hopeful that we can do that over the next couple of weeks. John?
Senator Schumer on the floor claimed that the deal that he had on the table for Mitch McConnell today was much different than the one that he had last week. How did the ball move forward, if it did at all, between Friday night and this morning?
Look, I think that Democrats realized that the position that they had taken, frankly, was indefensible, and that they had to focus on first funding our military, protecting Border Patrol agents, funding vulnerable children through the CHIP program. These were things that they didn't disagree with. They agreed with everything that was in this CR. The president stayed firm, Republicans stayed firm, and Democrats, I think, realized that they had to move past that piece of legislation and so that they could focus on the conversation they're desperate to have.
So is it your contention that the deal that Chuck Schumer accepted and lauded today is really no different than the deal that he had on the table Friday?
I don't see it to be drastically different, no. Major.
Just so we understand, is there no interaction, and was there no interaction between the president and the campaign committee in the creation of that ad? Did he approve it?
That's something I wouldn't be part of that process, Major. I couldn't speak to that.
But it's an important question.
Donald Trump and I approve this message.
Again, the president has some liberties that I don't. That would be something I would have to check on, but I would refer you to the campaign because they're the only ones that can speak specifically to
Podium
that
describe
issue.
that as an accurate representation of his belief about what Democrats are and what their position was during the shutdown, that they were complicit and would be complicit in any future murders because of the shutdown.
I think that if people are unwilling to secure our borders, that they're unwilling to end chain migration, unwilling to end the visa lottery system, unwilling to fix all of the problems that we have in our immigration system, and aren't willing to negotiate and actually do things that fix that system that we know to be problematic, then yes, that would be a problem and certainly allow for future incidents to take place. John?
So just Sarah, real quick, is a 2-year requirement required from the president for defense spending going forward? Is that one of his top goals for the budget negotiations going forward? Not just this fiscal year, but 2 years on defense.
Look, I'm not going to negotiate with you here, but we've made clear that I'm not finished. We've made clear that that's certainly our preference. John.
Thanks, Sarah. The president several months ago called on Congress to provide a legislative fix for those 700,000 or so DACA recipients. Is it his position that he would sign such a bill, a clean bill, or would he insist upon funding for that border wall with Mexico?
Certainly, we want to make sure the president and the administration have laid out what we'd like to see. Those priorities haven't changed. A solution on DACA, into chain migration, into the visa lottery system, and funding for border security that would certainly include the wall.
On another issue, tomorrow, I believe, is the beginning of the final round of negotiations concerning NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. How are those negotiations going right now? What we're hearing right now is that they're not going well. They haven't been going well over the first 5 rounds. Is the president prepared to pull the U.S. out of NAFTA?
Look, we don't have any specific announcements, but we actually feel like things are moving forward. We're going to continue in those negotiations, but as the president has said many times before, he's going to make sure that he gets the best deal for America and American workers. That's still the focus, and that'll still be a topic of discussion as we move in these negotiations. Dave?
After this shutdown episode, does the president feel like he can deal with Democrats anymore? I mean, for example, Senator Coons said over the weekend, he implied that the president didn't know the difference between authorization and appropriation, and there's been other leaks about conversations behind closed doors. What is the president's level of trust with the Senate Democrats going forward?
I wouldn't say it's the highest level of trust, but I think we're certainly hopeful that we can reach an agreement on responsible immigration reform. We've laid out what we want, and we hope that Democrats, we know they agree on most of those components, and we hope that they'll come to the table ready to actually make a deal and less focused on playing political games.
Beyond immigration, you have the budget, you've got infrastructure, other big things you want to get done. Is that going to be possible after this fight?
We hope so. We hope that Democrats, again, will not play politics, and they'll focus and put the needs of the country ahead of the political gamesmanship that they've been playing over the last couple of months. And we hope we can move that ball down the field on a number of issues, but starting with the budget and then moving into immigration. Peter?
Would the president support a pathway to citizenship for Dreamers?
We have said that we would support a permanent solution for those in the DACA program, and I think that would address that in that front.
Very clear about that. You must have some position on this. The president clearly has conviction on this issue. So does he support this divisive issue, a pathway to citizenship for these individuals?
I think on the specific, the number of people that are already in that program, we do hope to find a permanent solution that would address that.
To be clear, legal status versus pathway to citizenship, or does it not matter to the president?
I think that's part of the negotiation process, but right now, again, we want a permanent solution for that program. But we also want to keep a big priority for the administration is making sure we don't find ourselves having this same battle in 2, 3, 4, and 5 years down the road. So we have to have a responsible immigration reform that addresses a number of issues, not just the DACA program.
I just want to follow up on that question. You just said there that you would be open to permanent legal solution for the 690,000 people in the DACA program. What about beyond that? There's a lot. Axios had a story last week that said an internal White House administration memo estimated that what the Democrats want would potentially legalize 3 million Dreamers. Where did you get that number? And what is the limit that the president has on how big this population of dreamers really is? I think this, the DREAM Act would be predicted to legalize 1.7 million. Where do you draw the line?
Look, again, I'm not going to negotiate with you any more than I was going to with Major. This is something that we're going to work on with Congress and look for the best solution for our country, as long as, too, again, don't forget, a big priority for this administration is making sure we address this program in its entirety, not just that one piece of it.
You said this program, I mean, again, there's certain people who've had the DACA protection. Other dreamers decided not to apply for various reasons. Is the White House open to addressing a deal in this go-round for a population that's larger than just those who had DACA?
We're open to having a debate on a level playing field on this issue and negotiating that with Congress and making sure that we get the deal that meets the criteria that we've clearly laid out. Blake?
Sarah, thanks. One clarification before my question. The president is still planning on going to Davos?
As of right now, if all things go as expected this afternoon with the reopening of the government, which we expect that they will, the president's delegation will leave tomorrow and the president will continue on his trip later in the week.
And my question, the priorities of a DACA fix, where exactly does that rank? Because when you talk about what needs to happen for a deal, diversity visa lottery program, the wall, ending chain migration, DACA, some other components up on the Hill may need to be worked in as well. The actual DACA solution, how big of a priority is that one component for the president?
We look at all of those as equal parts in this process. That's why we laid out what we called our 4 priorities and listed that as one of them.
So a DACA fix is on the same level playing field as the wall?
Look, we know that that's going to be part of this negotiation. That's something the president has committed to do, but we don't want to do that without the other 3 components. It's like having a stool with 2 legs. It doesn't work very well. We want to make sure that we're addressing this more fully and in a responsible way so that we're not just kicking the can down the road, but we're actually dealing with the issue more long term. Steve?
Sir, we haven't seen the president for a couple of days. What has he been doing behind the scenes as this drama has unfolded?
Look, we've put out a number of readouts. He's had several different calls, both with members on the Hill. He has met with a number of his cabinet to manage the shutdown. That was a big priority for the president, was making sure that this was well managed and that it wasn't, as Director Mulvaney calls, weaponized as it was in 2013, and making sure that as we could make the impact of the shutdown have as little effect on Americans as possible. That's been a big priority for the president. I think that it certainly went much smoother than it has in the past, but also the president was putting pressure and standing firm on exactly what he was willing to do and what he wasn't, and it very clearly worked because we're back where we basically started on Friday, and the Democrats have now allowed this to move forward. Hopefully the House will move this through quickly and it'll be at the White House for the president to sign, and then we can start immediately on discussions on immigration reform.
See him, sir. When will we see him?
We'll keep you posted.
We'll
certainly make sure you guys are aware when that time comes.
Will we see him sign the thing? Or?
Certainly possible, and we'll let you know as the timing of that still isn't finalized. We've got to wait on the House piece. There's also OMB and legal reviews that have to take place before it actually finally hits the president's desk, and so a little bit of that's just a timing and formality issue. David?
I was wondering, are we going to see him today, regardless of what the House does or doesn't do?
We'll let you know. We'll keep you posted. Maggie?
Sarah, just going back to the NAFTA discussions, does the president still have faith in Wilbur Ross? There was a report suggesting otherwise.
Absolutely. I spoke with the president about it directly this morning. He has 100% confidence in Secretary Ross. He loves Wilbur, thinks he's doing a great job, and has been a strong advocate for the administration and been a great leader when it comes to the trade discussion on steel, aluminum, and certainly his involvement in trade across the board with the administration. Cecilia.
Sarah, the president was very clear back in September when he said that dreamers have nothing to worry about. Is that still the case?
I think we've been pretty clear that we want to find a solution on the DACA program, and we're going to hope that Democrats are willing to work with us to make sure we actually resolve this issue. John?
There are a lot of dreamers in this country who are sort of living on pins and needles, not knowing what their fate is and has in store for them. What is this White House's message to that population of people?
I think that they should storm Capitol Hill and protest there, because that is the place that has held up this discussion. Democrats are the one that shut this discussion down by forcing a government shutdown, by being unwilling to fund the government. We lost 4 days over this process of the conversation that should have been focused on immigration reform, fighting over this CR. If they had been part of the solution instead of part of the problem, then I think we would have already been further down the road in our negotiations on that package, and hopefully we won't have problems like that in the future. John?
Thank you, Sarah. 2 questions. The first on the obvious that's there. Congressman Tom Cole, a member of the Republican leadership, said over the weekend that to a member, Republicans in the House were committed to the 3 priorities the president laid out in the process of reopening the government. Is the president in cement on those 3 in the negotiations that are going to follow? The ending chain migration, the ending of the lottery, and the appropriations for the wall.
Yeah, we've been clear those are our priorities when it comes to immigration.
Non-negotiable.
Look, these are the priorities we want to see in the package, and we're going to negotiate that with Congress, but we've been pretty upfront. I think I've said it about 30 times already today. Those are the priorities and the principles that we've outlined that we want to see in any legislative package that the president signs.
My other question, Sarah, is on a completely different subject. Monsanto and Bayer, who are 2 giants in the seed industry, are preparing to merge. Their CEOs have met with the president. And many fear that this is going to lead to a monopoly for them and in the seed industry and raising the prices, which will hurt the farm community. Is the president in favor of the merger of Monsanto and Bayer?
I haven't spoken with him about that, John. I'll have to get back to you tomorrow.
Thank you. I understand that you guys have laid out your criteria for what you want in a deal, but is the president saying that on March 5th, if he doesn't get what he wants from the Democrats in those other areas, that he will begin to deport the Dreamers?
We haven't determined that. We're hopeful that we don't have to do that and that we don't have to get there. We would like Democrats to get serious about actually solving problems. They say they want to have this conversation. They say they want to negotiate, so much so that they were willing to shut down the government. If they're that willing to go that far, surely they'll be willing to come to the table and talk about real solutions and get something done.
Remove the deportation protection from the Dreamers.
The president is the one that enforced the law. Yes, he is. That is his job as commander-in-chief. He did that, absolutely.
One other question. The president
but let's be clear, but that is because of Congress's failure to actually address the issue. They're the ones that actually pass and make those laws, and the president gave a 6-month time frame in order for them to do that. And now I think all of America is counting on them to show up and make sure that happens.
And just one more. The president's son Eric said that the shutdown was a good thing for us, meaning politically it was a good thing for the president and his party. Does the president agree with that?
I haven't spoken to him about those comments. Sorry, Darlene.
What is the guidance on how quickly the government would reopen and how soon workers would be expected to be back at work, and national parks and other facilities that were closed will reopen?
Again, most of those parks, they tried to maintain and keep those open. Unlike in past shutdowns, they really tried to minimize the impact on the American people. In terms of what the turnaround time for a full reopen, as I said earlier, we are waiting on the House to vote and clear. Then it'll go through the OMB budget process and review and a legal review, and then hit the president's desk, which we expect sometime late afternoon, early evening, which would make most government offices already closed, and so they would start back in full capacity tomorrow morning. And if that changes, we'll certainly let you guys know, but that's sort of what we tentatively expect at this time. Stephen.
I'm hoping to give you a chance to respond to the criticism that Senator Schumer lobbed over the weekend. In addition to saying that the president negotiating with him is like negotiating with Jell-O, today the senator said that the great deal maker sat on the sidelines. Was it a concerted effort on the president's part not to reach out to him this weekend? Was that part of his strategy?
Look, what the president did clearly worked. The vote just came in 81-18. I would say that those numbers are much more in the president's favor than in Senator Schumer's favor. I'm not sure what changed for him and what he gained other than maybe Nancy Pelosi taking a bunch of Republican members out for dinner to celebrate their shutdown. I'm not sure what other positive things came out of this weekend for Democrats. Yeah, sorry, Democrat members. I'll take one last question. Kristen?
Just following up on that, in addition to Chuck Schumer saying the president negotiates like Jello, even Leader McConnell said he wasn't completely clear on where the president stood when it comes to some of these immigration priorities. So is the president shifting his policy positions behind the scenes under pressure from his conservative base?
Not at all. The president, as well as the administration, we've laid out clearly in a 3-page memo what our priorities are, what our principles are for this process, and we have been very consistent on that front.
Do Jason Miller and John Kelly have veto power over any immigration deal?
Jason Miller doesn't work in the administration. The only person I'm aware of with veto power in this country is the president. Thanks, guys.
Take one on Pence in Jerusalem.
Is it still too early to talk about?
Post show at Right Side Broadcasting for the White House press briefing. That was Sarah Sanders. This is the post show. We're going to take your comments on the air and read them on the air. I am Steve Lookner. Write to me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. Let me know what you thought about the press briefing. Is there stuff you liked? Is there stuff you didn't like? Is there stuff you wanted to be asked about that wasn't asked about? Let me know. Give me a shout at Lookner on Twitter. We're going to read your comments on the air. Real quick, I wanted to say a quick thank you to Mr. Nicktown and the Roberts Liu Foundation. During the briefing, they made donations to us here at Right Side Broadcasting, and we are viewer supported here. Your donations are what keeps us on the air and allows us to be an alternative to the mainstream media. So if you like having a place to go for these events that's not CNN or MSNBC or Fox, something a little different, please consider donating. You can donate by going to the bottom of the YouTube chat. There's a little $sign at the bottom of the YouTube chat, or you can go to rsbn.tv/donate. So either of those ways, and thank you again to Mr. Nicktown and Roberts Liu Foundation, who both clicked on the $sign at the bottom of the YouTube chat. We really appreciated your donations. Thank you. And thanks to our moderators for moderating the chat today. So I want to begin, before we get to your comments, I'm going to get to your comments in a minute. Write to me on Twitter, at Lookner, at Lookner. I didn't think there was much huge news in the briefing today. We can talk about some of the things she talked about. One thing Sarah Sanders said is that the White House doesn't think Senator Schumer really gained anything and the Democrats really gained anything from the shutdown. She said the White House feels that the deal they agreed to was basically the deal that was on offer on Saturday early in the morning. Now, maybe somebody might say in response, well, McConnell and the Republicans have now agreed to debate and vote on a DACA bill where they didn't do that before. So who knows? But anyways, so that was asked about. But one thing I want to say, there were like 2 or 3 questions on this new President Trump campaign ad, and I hadn't heard about this ad before. And I guess the questions were like, hey, does President Trump still agree with that ad that called Dreamers murderers or Democrats murderers? I was like, what is this ad they're talking about? So I looked it up because I hadn't heard about this, and there was a Breitbart article on it, and it says, this is an article from 2 days ago. I'd missed this. It says, Trump releases new ad, Democrats complicit in every murder committed by illegal immigrants. So according to this, the ad, I guess, says, Democrats are complicit in illegal immigrant violent crime and murder so long as they continue blocking funding for a border wall along the U.S.-Mexico border and hold up negotiations on pro-American immigration reforms, President Trump's new campaign ad states. So that's what it says, and the ad was released just this weekend after the shutdown started. And then in the ad, it says... Luis Bracamontes, a 37-year-old illegal alien from Mexico who allegedly shot and killed Detective Michael Davis and Deputy Sheriff Danny Oliver in October 2017, is featured in the ad, saying in the courtroom during his murder trial that he wished he had killed more of those MFers. The ad goes on to state that Democrats are complicit in illegal alien crime so long as they continue supporting open borders policies like sanctuary cities, while blocking full funding for a wall on the southern border and illegal immigration cutting reforms to raise the wages of American workers. So, anyways, that was asked about a couple times. I didn't know about that. I didn't know about this ad. So now you have the background on. You might have been confused like me and saying, well, what ad are they asking about? What new campaign ad are they asking about? Okay, by the way, real quick, Sandra Ferrero made a donation that said, thank you, Right Side, God bless America and President Trump MAGA. Thank you, Sandra, for that donation. Very nice of you. And thank you, Timberlab, for the donation. Timberlab said, thank you, Steve, RSBN, and Mod Squad. Thank you, Timberlab. Our moderators in YouTube today are JC, Roger, Vega, Barbara, Braley. Who else is there? And Webster was there earlier. Hey, so give me a shout. What did you think? I want to get to your comments. Enough of me talking. What did you think about the press briefing? Let me know. At Lookner on Twitter. At Lookner on Twitter. Just Rob writes in, I want to know why the White House press corps doesn't ask anything at all about the alleged memo detailing wrongdoing. That's not a question for me, Just Rob. You'd have to ask the White House press corps that. Maybe they don't think it's that important. I don't know. I mean, it's also something where, you know, it didn't come, that story's been out for like a week now, and they tend to only ask about the more recent stories. So, but I don't know if they ever asked a question about it. Let's see here. Garrett writes in, the FBI lost 5 months worth of text messages from Agent Strizok. Not one question from the mainstream media cronies. Has there not been a question about this? So the story you're talking about, and I hope I'm pronouncing Strizok right, is, let me just show you this. I'll call it up here. I'll call it up here on the screen. So the Hill story is, hang on. Republicans demand new special counsel over lost FBI text messages. Let's see here. The demands come after new revelations that the FBI failed to preserve 5 months worth of text messages between 2 FBI agents who've been accused of pro-Clinton and anti-Donald Trump bias during the 2016 presidential race. And let me show you, this is like a better summary of that. And the reason they said they don't have these messages, this is from the Daily Caller, it said, so again, the FBI failed to preserve 5 months worth of text messages. And it's the FBI said, the department wants to bring to your attention that the FBI's technical system for retaining text messages sent and received on FBI mobile devices failed to preserve text messages for Mr. Strizok and Mrs. Page. So that's what the FBI said. The texts are missing for the period between December 14th, 2016 and May 17th, 2017. The FBI attributed the failure to misconfiguration issues related to rollouts, provisioning, and software upgrades that conflicted with the FBI's collection capabilities. The result was that data that should have been automatically collected and retained for long-term storage and retrieval was not collected. Strizok and Page were significant players in the Clinton and Trump investigations. As Deputy Chief of Counterintelligence, Strizok oversaw the Trump investigation when it was opened in July 2016. Weeks earlier, he had wrapped up work as one of the top investigators on the Clinton email probe. Both worked on Special Counsel Robert Mueller's Russia investigation until July 2017. So Garrett would have liked to have seen a question asked about that, but nothing. There was nothing asked about it today. I don't believe there's been a question asked in a press briefing today about that. A press briefing yet about that. Gary Crunk writes in, Democrats folded, you're saying on the shutdown, because they had a weak position. They are still trying to push illegals instead of Americans. We are taking your comments on the air here about the White House press briefing and also about the news of the day with the Senate voting to end the shutdown, which will be over by the end of the day. Don't know if President Trump is going to be doing some kind of signing ceremony. Sarah Sanders wasn't sure either, but if he does, we will try our best to bring it to you. If we can, we will bring it to you. But we're taking your comments on the press briefing and also on the news of the day. So if you have comments, write to me on Twitter at Lookner. At Lookner. Feel free to follow me as well if you like breaking news. I cover breaking news all the time. Also, subscribe to us here at Right Side Broadcasting so you get notified when we're coming on the air with our broadcast, but you got to click the notifications bell when you subscribe. Okay, let me get some more of your comments, but let me first say thank you to Miss Rob Mob for a donation. Thank you. She says, MAGA, good job, RSBN Stephen moderators. God bless you all. And thank you, person who doesn't want their name said, but they're a very frequent supporter of Right Side. So thank you, person in the chat room who's a frequent supporter of Right Side and says RSBN is simply the best. Thank you. And John PS30 made a donation of $13 and said, it's my lucky number, RSBN, keep it going. Thank you, John. Twit writes in, Sarah Sanders was on fire today, slaying with facts and taking no crap. Mr. Anderson says, I wish someone would have asked about the memo. Mark the Anti-Satan says, did I miss a mention of the memo? Andrew Sova writes in, fact, illegals over the safety of American citizens. Hashtag government shutdown facts. Hashtag Democrat shutdown. Hashtag Schumer shutdown. Gabriel Vittoro says, why can't the reporters remember the points regarding immigration, chain, wall, lottery, etc.? I think the reason you're asking that, Gabriel, is there was a question today about Sarah Sanders about something to the effect of like, hey, so is the president still insisting on chain migration and the border wall and getting rid of chain migration and getting rid of the diversity visa lottery? And Sarah Sanders was like, yeah, that's been our position all along. Now, she didn't say it was non-negotiable. She was specifically asked if it was non-negotiable. She said that's what we want. So read into that as you will. But yeah, I mean, they have said that Sarah Sanders has been saying that a lot at recent briefings, that these things are what the president wants. Gary Crunk writes in, missing FBI text messages is just yet another example of the holdovers / deep state removing evidence. Just like the deleted Clinton emails and other missing missing docs, i.e. IRS, DOJ, etc. Deep state is real and still dangerous. The swamp needs some serious draining. Carol Talloway writes, this is the first time I watched the briefing all the way through. So glad April was iced out. So glad April was iced out. What am I missing there? I'm trying to figure out what that means. So glad April was iced out. I don't know what that means. Maybe I should know what it means. I have no idea what it means. Someone write in and tell me what that means. And maybe when I hear it, I'll be like, oh, that's what I meant. Ellie Avenel writes in, I'd love to see Trump take over as dictator for a while, bypass the Dems, and do what needs to be done. Hashtag MAGA. AM writes in, we Trump's base never voted for a pathway to citizenship, which is another name for DACA. I am so angry that this is now being snuck into all the press briefings when it's the complete opposite of Trump's promises to his voters. Now, DACA does not provide a pathway to citizenship for DACA recipients. Sarah Sanders today was asked about whether the president supports a pathway to citizenship, and she repeatedly said he supports a permanent solution. So it sounds like what President Trump would be okay with is if DACA protections became part of law, but the protections basically said you can stay here as long as you want, but they didn't grant citizenship to the Dreamers. That's two different things. You could say, hey, Dreamers who came here when you were young, you're allowed to stay for the rest of your life. That doesn't make them citizens, though. So it sounds like the president is not committing to supporting them being made citizens. We are reading your comments here So give me a shout if you have comments on the press briefing. Oops, hang on one second. I got to close something. Give me a shout. I'm at Lookner on Twitter. At Lookner on Twitter. Lookner. Thank you to Jake, who's been producing all day. Jake Seals. He is at Jacob RSBN Music. Ron Van Wagner wrote in earlier, can you, when you show the Senate, can you put up the name of the senator who's actually testifying? So, and can you adjust the band of information at the bottom to allow people to see the name placards of the senators who are asking the questions? A couple different things. First of all, we kind of have to keep our graphics on the air, so we apologize. Sometimes the graphics get in the way of some writing on the air or whatever, but it's just sort of a necessary thing. We want to, have it be. It's an RSBN broadcast, so we need to have our graphics up. We appreciate the suggestion about having the names of senators. It is one of these things, though, where we have a very, very small staff here, and often we only have like one person producing the entire broadcast, and it can be a bit complex for someone to be kind of keeping things on the air and at the same time changing the graphics and looking at who's speaking and stuff like that. So it's something that if we ever grow bigger, we will have people who are just assigned to do that kind of thing. We would love to do it, but we are a very, very small operation here. So I think it's a good suggestion, and it's something we've thought of doing. It's just there tend to be things we need to do. It kind of gets lost because we're trying to do other things, and also we're using kind of, we don't have like the incredible, probably hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million setup that these news networks have, which makes it much easier to like keep putting graphics on the air without having it look crazy bad doing so. So we're a bit limited because of our lack of funds, and we do things on a shoestring here, which is why we're constantly asking for donations, because we really do need the money to stay on the air. But your suggestion has been noted, and it's something we would like to be able to do in the future. Someone named Steve's Other Tie, I guess that person might have changed their name to reflect my ties, although I don't know what you mean by my other tie, if that's indeed what it's referring to. But Steve's Other Tie says, another Democrat failure. We called this back in September. You're saying the Democrats agreeing to keep the government in session. Now, remember, all the Democrats agreed to, though, was to keep the government funded till February 8th. So the government could shut down again on February 8th, which is only 2.5 weeks from now. So we might be back here again in a couple weeks. Edie Marie Trump writes, the White House press pool seemed deflated to me. They weren't their usual rambunctious, obnoxious selves. By the way, Sarah Sanders looks lovely in navy. Hashtag release the memo. Hashtag we the people. Hashtag Trump won. So do you think, Edie Marie Trump, they were a bit depressed because the shutdown ended? Let's see. Donaldo writes in, pretty normal briefing. Media wanting to catch Sarah in a verbal mistake. DACA is not a law. All immigrants need a path to citizenship. How many dreamers have applied for citizenship thus far? Change immigration law to improve immigration, period. SoCal Boho Gal writes, shutdown hurts government workers, those who paid into SSA Medicare. Edward Briley says, please bring up this article and let your listeners know how government shutdown started. So if you want to read the article that viewer Edward Briley recommends, you can go here. He recommends you read this article at fedsmith.com called Who Invented Government Shutdowns? And the article says the man who invented the shutdown was the Attorney General for Jimmy Carter. But you can read more about that at this article. Let's read more of your comments. Doggy Fashions writes in, Steve, I always thought Trump would go easy on these young people. During the campaign, he said he would like to do something for them. I hope people don't turn against Trump over something he always intended to do. Love Summer from the RSBN chat room, Summer Sunrise, I believe. Thank you, Doggy Fashions. So I will say this. if DACA ends up becoming the law, whereas before it was only an executive presidential policy which could get changed by a future president, that would actually be of benefit to the Dreamers. So one could argue, if this becomes a law, that President Trump greatly helped the Dreamers, because President Trump could have just done nothing about this, and then a future president could have gotten rid of the policy. So President Trump, I think it was back in September, said, look, I'm not going to keep enforcing DACA, but I'm giving Congress a window until March to do something about it. So that might end up spurring Congress to make it into a law. And if that happens, then President Trump could be seen as really helping Dreamers by getting it to be a law. So, you know, that's where we're at right now. We got another donation from J.B. Patterson. J.B. Patterson says, because April iced out. I don't know what that means either, but it was good. Oh, maybe it's April. I think I remember now. Is it April Ryan? Did she not get to ask a question today? Is that what happened? I'm listening to a lot of the briefing, but I'm not seeing it all. So I don't know if she got to ask a question, but maybe she tried to ask and couldn't, or something happened with her question or something. Maybe that's what the viewer was referring to before. Thank you, JB, for the donation. Yeah, JC, one of our moderators, says iced out equals not called on. So that's probably what the viewer was referring to. If she was indeed not called on, again, I'm listening to a lot of the briefing, so I can't say for sure if she was called on or not. Let's see here. Roxanne Love writes in, I think the Democrats thought this shutdown would make the president look bad, but public opinion blames the Democrats and Schumer, and the Democrats saw a poll on my local news in California saying public seeing the shutdown is the Democratic Party's fault. Best part of my weekend. Andrew Silva says, just curious, Steve, did you notice that anytime you leave a video that you've liked, it disappears? I'm a little confused, Andrew. I'm not sure what you're saying. Anytime you leave a video that you've liked, it disappears? I'm confused. Feel free to clarify, Andrew. I'm not sure what you're getting at. Carol Talloway says April is the this looks like it looks like a typo there. Who always brings up racial issues, no matter the topic. Others were waiting for her question. She raised her hand, but no dice from Sarah. So April Ryan, you're saying wasn't called on today. I got it. Thank you, Carol. Hey, we got a donation from Canada. Adam D made a donation from Canada and said, great coverage, been watching RSBN more and more. Thank you, Adam D. That's very nice of you. We appreciate it. All right, we're going to be on a few more minutes here with our post show about the briefing. So get your comments in. Write to me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. Want to hear your comments. Feel free to follow me at Lookner if you like breaking news. I do breaking news posts all the time. Thanks again to our moderators. Common Sense and Gleno on the website. JC, Guinevere, Barbara, Braley. Right now, Webster in the chat room. Thank you, thank you. Roger Vega. Also during the briefing, by the way, I'm just trying to think, is there anything else I really wanted to bring up? We talked about the campaign ad. Sarah Sanders says, everything goes well today, getting the government back in business. Then President Trump will leave on his trip Wednesday to the World Economic Forum in Davos. And hopefully we'll have some coverage of that we'll be able to bring you. Let me just check my email as well. Also, to repeat, there very well might be a President Trump event or signing or him talking about the government reopening today. We're not sure about that. We will do our best, if it happens, to bring it to you. So to know if we're doing that, subscribe to us on YouTube. Click on the notifications bell when you subscribe. You should also follow us on Twitter at RSB Network, at RSB Network. And on Facebook, Right Side Broadcasting. Andrew Pullen says, the background scroll looks bad because the step size is too big or there aren't enough frames to slow it down further without it looking twitchy. Shouldn't be too hard to fix depending on the background asset is still up. Let me know if I can help. Andrew, we know the background scrolling isn't as clean as you might see like on NBC or something. A big issue though is, and this happens a bit with the ticker too, we're online. And when you broadcast online, even if you look at like NBC News and like big news networks when they broadcast online, it keeps things from going smoothly. So there's that. And also, again, we're not using multi-million-dollar equipment here. So we have done the best we can with the background. We've tried different things to fix it. We know it's a little uneven. I find I don't really notice it unless I really focus on it. So your point is well taken, but just know it's part of the limitation with A, broadcasting online, and B, the equipment we're using. But really, it's interesting. CEO Joe Seals of Right Side showed me initially. He's the one who first pointed this out to me. If you go to like CNN or MSNBC and you look at their like YouTube broadcasts, their ticker is a little uneven too. So something about doing this with online broadcasting does make things a bit uneven. There's just a bunch of contributing factors here. So your point's well taken. We're constantly trying to improve things, but just know that it's not, we've gone through this with backgrounds, and it's not as easy as you might think to just perfectly smooth everything out. But we appreciate you writing in with your suggestion. Stephen Gill made a donation of British pounds. Thank you, Stephen Gill. Thank you. Andrew Silva, what he says the like you leave on a video on YouTube goes away. So it's like you never left it. I have not had that happen, Andrew, where my likes went away, but you're saying that it's happened to you. Now, likes do help because, if your video gets liked a lot, YouTube will share it with other people. So since we're small and we can't advertise, we love when you like our videos on YouTube, if you actually like them, and if you share them on Facebook. That's a really big help for us. All right, I think we have gotten to all the comments, so we are going to wrap up our post-show right now. I want to say thank you to everybody who wrote in and shared your thoughts with us today, and let me read your comments on the air. Everybody who donated, big thank you. That's how we stay on the air, so we, of course, really appreciate that. If you'd like to support Right Side Broadcasting, go to the bottom of the YouTube chat, click on the $sign there. It doesn't matter if it's a small donation. Everything adds up, so we really appreciate the support. You can also go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. You can even get free stuff like this Right Side mug by signing up for a monthly donation at rsbn.tv/donate. So you can read all about that there. Thanks so much, Jake Seals, producing today. Thank you, Jake. Great job producing both events today, Senate coverage and this. If you didn't watch the Senate vote this morning, we showed that, so you can go to our YouTube page and watch the Senate vote. You can follow Jacob on Twitter at JacobRSBNMusic. Our head moderator, Jude Seals, you can follow at rsbnmoderator. And our CEO, Joe Seals, you can follow him at Joe Seals, at Joe Seales. And Right Side, you can follow it at RSB Network. Thank you to all the moderators, JC, Barbara Braley, Roger Vega, Guinevere, Webster, Common Sense, and Gleno on the website. And thanks to all of the regulars and all the new people in the chat room. Thanks, people, for watching and for saying thanks. Hi, Dan the Man. Thank you for saying thanks. Jasmine Guthrie. Actually, I'm not sure. Dan the Man, I don't know if he technically said thanks, but I'm thanking him anyway. Are You Handy? Thank you. Miss Rob Mob, Irene Soto. Jabbery is there, Light Switch, Rooster. T. Ryan, thank you. Origin. Luciferin, Sean Healy, thank you. Joaquin 77. N2 Peace. TC Carol Reed. Bunch of other people saying thanks. YouTube 13. Linda. Marissa. Kyle Klein. UA12. Keith Godwin. Tia Marie. Everybody's saying hi now. Cafefe Coffee. Mr. Speaker. Earl Schmerl. A lot of shout outs today. We'll do a couple more. Then we got to wrap it up. TC Howard Newsom. Cheryl Sabbath Nomad. Old Guy 1947. Mike Baseman. Sheared Wheel Bearing is there. Chow Girl, Miss Rob Mob, Christine Bestien, DW Bigley, and everybody else. All right. Thanks for joining us for our coverage today. Again, if President Trump does speak later today, if we can get that if we can get that for you, we will, and we'll show it to you. So keep an eye out. And if there's other breaking news today or tonight, we of course will come back on the air and cover it for you. I am Steve Lookner. You can follow me on Twitter at @Lookner for breaking news @Lookner. For all of us here at Right Side Broadcasting, for myself, for Jake, for Joe, for everybody else, thanks for joining us for our press briefing coverage. Have a great day, and we will see you soon.